Being spiritual is being who you really are, and being who you really are boldly to the best of your ability, really daring yourself to disturb the universe, really daring yourself to exist intensely.
Punk rock and Buddhism are really both founded on dissatisfaction.
Being spiritual is being who you really are, and being who you really are boldly to the best of your ability, really daring yourself to disturb the universe, really daring yourself to exist intensely.
I don't really like the ist or ism of any religion. There's a few in each tradition and in each generation that are kind of doing what Christ was doing or doing what Buddha was doing. But the ism gets so far away from what inspired the movement in the first place. Punk rock and Buddhism are really both founded on dissatisfaction. If you're dissatisfied with the way it is, with the status quo, then do something about it. And I think that that's exactly where the punks were coming from, and every subculture and counter-cultural rebellion. It ain't over till it's over. It ain't over till it's over. It ain't over till it's over. It's that wisdom, that fierce wisdom in punk. And it's an act of rebellion to free oneself from greed and hatred and delusion, and to be a force of wisdom and compassion in the world. And I know in my own life, and so many, people would have said, like, Noah, no way ever, he's evil, Like, people felt that way about me at one time. And so I've proven, on some, not as evil as some, but a bad kid. And I guess that this whole concept of good and bad, in some ways it feels like it just boils down to being in pain or not. But that when I was in a lot of pain, I hurt a lot of people, and people thought I was bad. And I found myself at 17 years old, locked up for my third felony, and that moment in the rubber room after a suicide attempt in juvenile hall of like, oh, this is not everyone else's fault. I have created the mess that I'm in. And it was at that kind of ideal bottom place for me, I started going to meditation retreats. My emotions and thoughts dictated my life. My mind said lie, steal, take drugs. It was very powerful of like, oh, I can choose not to do what my mind's telling me to do. Slowly, as my practice developed, came the feeling that I spent the first half of my life hurting people. I'd like to spend the rest of my life helping. And as we do our own work to free ourselves, also sending out the intention to bring about positive change in the world.
Just what does a spiritual person look like? What does a spiritual person act like?
Being spiritual is being who you really are, and being who you really are boldly to the best of your ability, really daring yourself to disturb the universe, really daring yourself to exist intensely. I don't really care what you call God or you don't call God. What I care about is how do these beliefs of God or no God affect your life? You know,